What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Welcome to a Monday show, gang. Been a couple of days. Missed the, Thursday and Friday, I think, last week. Just a couple of slates that needed some attention through the day and just kind of got away from me kind of afternoons. Didn't want to compete in the 5 o'clock hour and have 10, 12 people, even though we don't exactly set record numbers. So missed you guys those days, but thought we had some successful days on those days, so that went well. Pretty good weekend for me as well. Hopefully you guys did well over the weekend. Hopefully everybody out there had good weekends just in general. But a successful DFS weekend overall. Yesterday's slate wasn't fantastic, but Saturday was really good. 6 of my 22 lineups that I entered in the $3 on FanDuel got into the top 1%. I think 5 of those were in the top 150. Ended up in 7th, tied 3 ways with my best lineup. Had been in 5th. Nothing crazy, but nice little profitable day. Could have been a little bit more profitable. Obviously, we're looking for that top spot. Somebody was offset by 15 points though. It was never competitive for the top spot, but 2 through 7 were very close. But a fun contest, fun slate on Saturday. We've got a chaotic 7-gamer today. There are several spots that are really, really straightforward. We've got one of the best looking games of the year in terms of fantasy scoring potential on the board today. We've also got 3 teams that we're just kind of almost entirely guessing at with Miami, Dallas, and Utah all on this slate. We do have some pieces of the news. It's not as bad as it was earlier this morning or before 1:30, 3:30. But it's still going to be chaotic. It's still kind of messy. So we'll get into that. One of those pieces on Dallas is up here. He's not at the top of the board. He's just sorted to the top of the board right now. Last I looked, Kai Jones was still not on the DraftKings slate. I don't even know. I haven't gone back to check if he's actually signed, but he is on the FanDuel slate at 3,500. He is not coming up for the 18 minutes that I gave him. He would need to play more even at the min price to really find value there. So didn't come up on FanDuel. Doesn't exist on DraftKings. I'm just going to take him off the board for now. But know that he does kind of potentially exist. Let me actually double check that. I meant to do that earlier. I got sidetracked because the Utah news dropped right after I finished the Utah minutes, and I had to go back and swing through that and redo, who else? Charlotte and somebody else. So I forgot to actually look if he did get signed. Everything was plans to. The issue there is Moses Brown was on a 10-day. And they couldn't extend him a second 10-day because of their apron status. All the, the salary cap stuff. So I assume he's there. Everything is still a day ago that I'm seeing that says planned to. I guess I should search Twitter. Regardless, again, this barely matters. And I took him off the board. I just want to see it. Moses Brown, potentially a candidate to sign with the New York Knicks, apparently. I don't know if that's still going to happen, but everything Kai Jones looks like it is just people asking about Kai Jones on Twitter. But again, I do not expect him to matter at all, but it just creates a little bit more chaos in an already chaotic situation. But he got sorted off the top of the board there. Let me resort by DK. We've got some commonality across slates today. If you look, there's a lot of guys that are the super values on both sites. Some of it coming out of that Atlanta-Memphis game. We've got many high-end pieces coming out of that game. That's the one that is, as mentioned, one of the best games of the year, potentially, on this side of lock. And then just some value plays from all over. But we're getting tons and tons of Najee Marshall. We're getting tons and tons of Joval. A lot of Okongwu, Malik Beasley. A lot of missing pieces, missing parts. Let's dive into things. Cujo, hope your Monday's going well too, buddy. Doug Geely, good to see you, pal. Javier, nice to see you. Javier had a great Sunday. Sent those DMs. Today's slate is going to be really fun with all the injuries. I assume I am played two under $3,500 players. Trav says, it could be Travis's here, says, don't think I've ever seen a 253-point total. That is quite the game environment. Yeah. This is the second or third 250-point total that we've had this season. There was one a couple of weeks ago, I remember, and I think there was one earlier in the year, but I think this is only the third. This might be the highest we've had all year. But a significant spot. Tons of pace in that game. But, Javier mentions he sent me a couple DMs This was, would you say these are on, bud? Bet 365? But took down, what, a fifth and a first for several $1,000? Not bad. But yeah, getting into some of the... yep, Bet 365. So I'm not supposed to mention that because apparently, we'll keep it between us. I think I can mention it to like the regulars, the people who are early for the show here. But Javier, field is pretty soft over there. He says, don't tell anyone. The competition's still not as good as it should be. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, fifth out of 10,973 entries for $3,000, and first out of 10,500 for another $1,000. Not too bad, fella. So let's talk about our slate here. Portland at Philly. Joel Embiid out. Paul George questionable. Messy spot overall, but we kind of know what Philly looks like in all circumstances. Kelly Oubre also questionable. I was struggling to remember who the other one was. Philly favored by 2.5 in a home game, 229 point total. Reasonable enough spot on either side of that one with Portland in town. There's pieces and parts from that team. There's missing guys on that team as well. Just kind of the usual situation in mostly an are who they are kind of a spot on both sides. 113 and a quarter and 115.75 point implied totals. Nothing crazy there. Golden State at Charlotte. Golden State favored by 12.5 on the road, 228 point total. Obviously, we could pick off some high-end pieces out of Golden State. And then whatever comes through the middle, they are getting some popularity. I do think there should be some upside guys there. Let's see how much we're getting to them, though, as at the sim results. I haven't really had a chance to pour through these sim results. The FanDuel one was hot off the presses right before the show started. Yeah, coming up a little bit lighter. Like Podziemski's down here. Nobody above him. Mo Moody, Draymond. Where is Steph? Steph, 10% FanDuel, 3% DraftKings. Yeah, not coming up as absolutely critical out of that game. That's an interesting spot, though. Going up against an obviously inept Charlotte team should benefit Golden State a little bit, but we could see them mess around with minutes quite a bit. Washington at Miami. Low point on the slate, 218 total. Washington, 105-point implied total, the bottom of the board, 113 implied total for the Miami side. 8-point spread favoring Miami. Ugly, ugly game overall. No Jordan Poole for Washington, though. Definitely creates some values. You can see some of them, I'm sure, on the board here. Bub Carrington, not too far down, above the field at 22% on FanDuel. 14% below the field, but not an insignificant amount of Carrington on the DK slate. Keyshawn George a few spots later. Chris Middleton a few spots down from that. So getting some Washington for sure. The Miami side, I hate this team with a passion at this point. Bam is coming up a little bit, it looks like, and hopefully no one else. No, all right, Hero and Bam, totally fine. No issues whatsoever with Hero and Bam. When we start getting into the everybody else on that team whose minutes fluctuate from nothing to mid-20s to 30s, it just becomes ridiculous. So I really hate going to Miami. I really hate that we're going to have to talk about Utah in a bunch of question marks there again. Dallas, same story. So this is just a team that I'm content where we're at. If we could just take Bam, Hero in whatever shares we get, and it does look like we've got a lot of Tyler Hero, and then kind of dip out and get away from everybody else. The game environment's just bad, and especially with just put everything into everything you take out of that one, put into Atlanta, Memphis. That game, as mentioned in the chat, I have it at 251.5. That's via Pinnacle, but I've seen it as high as 253. Memphis favored by 8.5 in a home game that they should handle going up against the Hawks. But again, tons and tons of pace. One of the highest game totals of the year. Everything's going to look good from this game, at least among anybody projected over mid-20s minutes. So definitely getting a lot of pieces, as you can see all the Atlanta and Memphis guys coming up and down the board. Houston, OKC. OKC favored by 10 in a home game, 228.5 point total there. Pieces and parts on either side. There's nothing wrong with any of the usual suspects from either of those teams, but nothing's looking outrageous. OKC more healthy than I was expecting to start the day, so we'll see if anybody ends up coming out of that lineup, but right now, looking like a normal situation for them. 2-point spread in Sacramento against Dallas. 231.5 point total. No Domantas Sabonis is an interesting wrinkle on the Sacramento side. Makes all those 30-plus minute guys look a little bit better, a little bit more condensed, a little bit of a rate uptick for some of them. So I suspect we'll get to some of those pieces. And then the Dallas side is continues to be a total disaster. The go-to guy that we've been getting the last couple times out, no longer on the team. We'll see what happens. They are just 2-point dogs, 231.5 point total. It's not a terrible spot overall. And then Detroit at Utah. Detroit should be able to do basically whatever they want. Cade Cunningham, decent projection. Not sure where he ranks out in terms of the sim. Looks like a little under the field on both sites while still having a decent amount of them. Makes sense to me. Cade should look pretty terrific. Guards smoke Utah. Utah is playing G League players and backups for the most part, although a couple guys questionable. 231 point total. Detroit favored by 10.5 on the road. Your high implied total for the day, 130. That's Memphis. The other team in that same game is your second highest, 121.5. That's Atlanta. Atlanta is closer to two other teams, though. Detroit's right at 120.75 and Golden State at 120.25. So those three teams are a step down in terms of their implied total from where Memphis is at 130. Memphis is the big offset team as the big favorites in that monster game, but both sides of that one look killer. Ins and the outs real quick. Probable. Jimmy Butler, Quentin Post, Miles Bridges, Seth Curry, Wendell Moore Jr., Gershon Yabusele is available, Bam is available, Trae Young, and then two G League guys that are apparently available, Nafle Dante and Jack McVay, and Isaiah Hartenstein is available. Questionables: Taj Gibson, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Santi Aldama, John Morant, Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, Alperen Şengün, Amin Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Colin Sexton, and Oscar Tshiebwe may or may not be available from the G League. Out: Jonathan Kuminga, Trey Mann, Brandon Miller, Josh Okogie, KJ Simpson, Grant Williams, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, Matty Thybulle, Robert Williams III, Joel Embiid, Eric Gordon, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Kyle Lowry, Jeremy McCain, Sadiq Bey, Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is doubtful. Nikola Jovic, Drew Smith, Kel'el Ware is out. That's another big piece missing, obviously, from the Heat. Kobe Buffkin, Jalen Johnson, Vic Krejci, Larry Nance Jr. all continue to be out. George Niang is out. That's a little bit of a wrinkle. Yuki Kawamura, Fred VanVleet continues to be out. Cody Zeller, Isaiah Joe, AJ Mitchell, Nikola Topic continues to be out. Domantas Sabonis, as mentioned. Anthony Davis is out. Danny Gafford, Derek Lively all continue to be out. So do Caleb Martin and PJ Washington. Tobias Harris is out. Creates a little additional value for Detroit that I forgot to mention. Jaden Ivey also out. Continues to be out. Jordan Clarkson out. John Collins doubtful. Elijah Harkless still in the G League. Taylor Hendricks, Lowry Markkanen both still out. Micah Potter still in the G League. Just to put some status on guys that people may be looking at from depth from Utah. So a lot of news coming. We are just past 4:30. We probably just got stuff because that's how the world works at 4:30 with this. Let's see. Tuesday. Fantastic. All Tuesday news. All right. I'm going to make a sweat. Utah has been in the habit, by the way, of releasing their starters about 2 minutes before their games lock lately, or most of the season. So just be aware of that. That spot could be real messy. We'll probably get news on any availability, but who's actually in the starting lineup, and then we get those crazy oddball wrinkles like Svi. I didn't give him minutes today. Learned my lesson, I think, at this point. But we all know that could swing the other direction, and he might end up playing 20 minutes or more. But again, right now, not projected. If you see him, the only way I would end up giving him minutes now is if you actually see him in the starting lineup, in which case it's kind of straightforward enough anyway. But I am sick to death of these DNPs and these surprises. Same deal with Miami. I geared Miami today kind of so that outside of the guys that I mentioned that we want, the heroes, the Bams of the world, they're kind of set up so that nobody should really come crashing through. And it's malleable, right? We can jump in there and make the changes once we know exactly what at least the starting unit's going to look like. But there's not even any security in that. It's just an incredibly fragile team. So I'm very happy to be where we're at with those two squads right now. Yeah, exactly. Can't trust anyone outside of Bam and Hero on the Heat. And it sucks because like those value guys that pop up could potentially be appealing at times. We've seen them kind of come through in our sim results at times when you put minutes on them. But I just have no faith. So I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to just middle the minutes on like everybody that's not Hero, Bam, Wiggins, and Davion Mitchell right now. Everybody else, I tried to middle as much as possible so that they're just not going to crash the party. And I don't think that's incorrect. Like, yeah, we do like fragility at times because that creates opportunity for GPPs. You know, the old chaos yields opportunity. So there is some of that lingering there, but it's so ridiculous and it's so unpredictable. It's very difficult to throw projections at. You can throw darts at it a little bit more lineup-wise than you can throw projections at it. It's just uncomfortable on this end. Doug's calling out Aja Thompson. I do think that's a good call. No Tobias there should just benefit everybody. Let's get into it. Let me cut some positions down. Jump into the guards. Where's Amin? Is he a forward only on DK? Where is he? Now that you mention him. Oh, he's right there. He's small forward, power forward on DK, small forward, shooting guard on FanDuel. That's why he wasn't on the board right after I sorted. But yeah, we're getting tons of them right now. I've got him at 27. That's up from his 22, 21 to 24, 20 to 24, whatever you want to call the range. And it's probably on the lower end of the range. I could easily see him playing 30. So definitely like the spot. He's been playing well. 114 per minute of FanDuel, 108 per minute DraftKings. Got him 28% of the time, level with the field, over the value threshold at 5,300, both forward spots on DraftKings. Even at 6,400 with his small forward shooting guard eligibility, 21% and above the field on FanDuel. It's short of the value mark on FanDuel, but I do think given how much we got to him with that value score, it's probably one of those days where probably small forward is just playing through the middle, where we're going to get guys that aren't quite in those fives. We also just don't have a ton of 5+ value guys on this slate, full stop. So it makes a lot of sense to me that he's going to see an uptick in minutes. And again, just everybody sees an uptick from playing against that Utah team as well. So that Detroit spot definitely looking pretty appealing. Even like Dennis Schroeder a couple spots down. 40% nearly on FanDuel because he's 4,100 at both guard spots over there, and we'll get back to the guards in a second. 4,200 at both guard spots on DraftKings. He's just showing just cheapo guy value. I only have him at 22 minutes, but he's 0.92, 0.95 across sites for this season with the expected uptick of a few potential minutes to just spread around to everybody. He's making value more than on FanDuel. He's technically there on DraftKings if we're rounding up from 2/100ths of a point. So Schroeder looks good. Cade, as mentioned, just top-end value. We're below the field on both sides, but we got 15, 18%. It's not nothing. And he's one of the few, the only? He's the only player on the FanDuel slate that I have projected over 50 fantasy points today. And he's one of two on DraftKings. It's him and Trey on DraftKings. SGA right behind that. SGA takes a little bit of a hit just for that matchup against Houston. Still fantastic, still SGA, still monster ceiling, but takes a hit by comparison. So Cade, just in a raw sense, and I have no issues if you want to kick that back over the field. I think there's a very good ceiling on Cade. Little Detroit run down there. Speaking of, Malik Beasley up toward the top of the board here. Same thing. It's a little bit of a bump in minutes. I've got him at 30. He's averaging 27 on the season. He only played like 24 in the last game. The issue with Malik is always he's going to come and go. He's going to live and die by his three-point attempts. He's been putting up 0.90, 0.96 across sites this season. Last year, on significantly less usage in a different kind of a role, he was just a 0.66 player. But this season, shooting 42.7 from three on 9.4 attempts per game, and we're giving him a little bit more time, a little bit more upside. You gotta like that at 5,000 shooting guard small forward on DraftKings, 52 shooting guard small forward on FanDuel. Makes value by a lot on both sites. 5.43 value on FanDuel, 5.85 on DraftKings. We're just level with the field. There's not a position really to be had there unless you take him into like the 60s. And I don't love that considering that there is a fairly big basement. It's a player that I really, over the years, don't trust. But I do think that there's plenty of upside in today's environment, and I'll have tons. He's going to be in probably half my lineups. If I had to pick a direction, I think I would take him up from the field, but I just think this is the numbers this ran against might even be a little bit low. I feel like the field's going to close in around 50 unless, and of course, things will change. Tyler Hero, as mentioned, tons and tons. 30% level with the field at 8,800 point guard only on DraftKings, 8,900 both guard spots on FanDuel. Looks fantastic, even though he's coming up light of the value mark at 491. He's a guy that doesn't really need to be above the value threshold as long as he's relatively close. Perfectly fine. We know what the ceiling looks like. 110 per minute, 117 per minute going up against one of the worst teams in basketball in Washington. Love the spot for Hero. Love the spot for Bam. Hate everything else Heat. Or Wiggins, I guess you could get away with. Trey and Dyson Daniels coming up like crazy. 27% of both guys. Same share, 27.33% on the DraftKings slate. 9,600 point guard only for Trey. 6,800 point guard shooting guard for Dyson Daniels. Love both guys. Anything from that game among anybody that's getting realistic minutes at a realistic price, fire away. We're level with the field on both those guys on DraftKings while having nearly 30%. I do think you could take both those guys into the 30s, build a little bit of a position on the field, but the field's probably going to chase you there. I kind of felt like the DraftKings ownership projections that this ran against were about 10 points low at the top end overall, and those are a couple of those guys. So just be wary of that. You're probably operating around the field on both those guys. On FanDuel, $9,300 Trey, 52.6% in our sim, looking like a monster. That's above the field by a pretty significant margin. He looks just absolutely dynamite there. So love the Trey option. Daniels comes and goes on FanDuel. He's $1,000 more expensive than he is on DK. 19% level with the field. I get it. 1.07 per minute. He does see the uptick from stocks in the FanDuel scoring system, but those tend to come and go. He's very, very good at getting them. A pacey, high-scoring game should feed that upside for a player like Dyson Daniels. So of all games, this is one where he should definitely be able to shine, and you can kind of project it a little bit more. So just like with Trey, I would take him north a little bit or up a little bit on either site, but it is noteworthy that he is shy of the value threshold, only slightly on DK at 5.43, a little further off at 4.79 on FanDuel. Little expensive, but it should be there today. Schroeder, I talked about just looking like a value square, 41.42. The price is right. Reliably around 0.85 to 0.95. That kind of a range. He's 0.95 for the season on DraftKings, 0.92 on FanDuel, and plenty of opportunity for him to succeed. Just got him at 22 minutes, could play a few additional. Could also play a few less than what I've got him projected for, in which case I do think it's advantageous to be below the field. If I'm taking him in a direction, I think I undercut it further, and there's plenty of room to do that since we're at 39% exposed. I could be happy at 30. I could be happy at 28, so on and so forth. But again, 5.53, not insignificant value score on FanDuel. Under the value threshold at 5.48 on DraftKings, but looking like a play. 18% seems reasonable on the DK slate, and a harder undercut to the field, though, while still having some. So that is a position that I think you can sacrifice a little bit of if you're looking to make some moves. But having these numbers and being below the field is also perfectly fine. Desmond Bane and Ja and anything else high-end coming out of the Memphis side of the Atlanta-Memphis game? Yes, please. I will take all the Ja that I can get to, 9% and hard undercut to the field. I'll be happy to have 15 and be level with the field, honestly. 8,300 on DraftKings. That is, 83 on FanDuel, too. He's just cheap. For a 128, 132 per minute guy, those are cheap prices. Look at him compared to everybody else. I mean, 92 for Steph, who puts up 133. So Steph's one hundredth of a point more and his one additional minute is going to be worth a $900 salary? I don't see it that way. Cade at 140, a little bit offset, but we're still talking about 8 100ths of a fantasy point, and now we're up to almost a $2,000 difference. And Ja is in the most incredible upside game of the day, of the week, of the month, possibly of the year, on the strong side of it. The minutes are a little fragile, but again, only at 31. It's not like I've got him at 37. Competitive game, we could see more. That's a pretty killer spot. I wouldn't mind artificially inflating Ja a little bit. I don't know that I'll project it that way, but it might be something you might want to look at out there in the world. Just give him a little bit of a nudge to get a little bit more, because it's a tremendous, tremendous spot. And then Bane, we're getting at just 8% on FanDuel. Basically everything I said applies, just at a lower level. He doesn't have that ridiculous per minute number, but he's a good per minute player. For 8,000, 115 on FanDuel works. For 7,600 at shooting guard only, 118 on DraftKings works. I like the multi-position on FanDuel that you get, but he's super playable. Karis LeVert coming out of the Atlanta side of that one too. 5,500 shooting guard, small forward. Sure, 14%. Level with the field. I could see it. He's a .93 per minute player. He kind of falls into that category of guys who will burn you. But this game environment should support an upside day for LeVert. .94 on DraftKings. We're level with the field at 2021. 5,100 shooting guard and small forward over there. He's nice and cheap. He's just under the value threshold, but again, basically everybody is. He's one of the closer guys to it. I think you just go there. Cade, as mentioned, top-end value. 15% below the field, 18% harder undercut to the field on DraftKings, but one of the best per-minute guys and the only guy on the FanDuel slate above 50, one of two guys above a 50-point projection on DraftKings. Looks tremendous going up against Utah. Plenty of room for him to succeed. It is a 36-minute projection. He averages 35 and change. You could see him play a little bit lighter than that, especially if they're lighting up Utah, though. No reason to necessarily run him into the ground. So maybe a little bit of fragility toward the bottom end, but he's got a monster ceiling as well. So I think it just offsets any concerns like that. Then we get into some of the slate, some of the dregs. Trav says, I think Amen Thompson is already better than Şengün as an NBA player. If he ever learns to shoot threes, look out. Amen's been good. I don't know if I'd go better than Şengün, but it's been very good. He's right here. Just to put it on the board, we didn't get any of them today. Nearly a 40-point projection, though, again, on a day that's kind of light just for raw scoring. The issue with everything Houston, and kind of the same thing on the other side with everything OKC, is they're colliding against one another. It's going to be a bit of a downgrade for everybody. But any one of the good players from that game could succeed. Here's one of the best players in all of basketball, a couple spots above in the same game. SGA, 49-point projection, 48-point projection. Against most other teams, he's easily into the 50s here. It's a 1.58 per minute player on FanDuel, 1.57 on DraftKings, and again, one of the best players in the entire world. So no issues with any SGA shares, but we're not really simming out that way. 11.5 is expensive on FanDuel. 10.6 is expensive on DraftKings. But yeah, Amen. What is he shooting from three? Taking 1.3 a game, shooting 27.4%. Yeah, I wonder if this is a product of that, or if that could be helped by taking more. Debatable. But yeah, adding a 3 to what he's done already would be helpful. Javier says 3 guys for SGE, but I just put more money on his 3 overs. I even bet 8 threes for Beasley. Again, I mean, Beasley looks pretty tremendous. 8, I hope you're getting a really nice price. He'd have to shoot the lights out for that. But he does. The guy takes 9.4 threes in an average game. So I could see 12, 13, 15 attempts, depending on how everything goes here. So if he takes 12, 8 of 12 is very, very good. It's not unheard of. So, yeah, as long as you're getting a good price there. But that 8 threes is aggressive. Yeah, Doug, with you. Playing Hawks, don't trust them, but yeah, you kind of just go there. It's just such good chalk. Everybody's going to be there, so we'll all live and die together as an industry tonight. I think it's just going to be so much weight in that game, but it's just not one of those. And it's old school thinking anyway, to be like, well, there's so much weight in that game, maybe I just go away from it, or like if you're building one lineup, maybe you don't use much of it. It just doesn't operate that way. There's just too much opportunity in that game to really leave anything out. So even in one lineup, I think you want multiple bites at the apple from that one. Millie's here. Kenny Woodhouse is here. What's going on, guys? What were you guys out at lunch together and you just walked in the door at the same time? What's going on? Loafing, skipping work. I get it. Those used to be great days. You'd be out 2.5 hours had gone by. You're 3 drinks deep at lunch. You're like, oh shit. Should probably go back to the office at some point. Trying to like stagger your entries so it doesn't look like 4 of you are coming back from the same lunch at the same time. Trav says that Houston defense is no joke. I'm Canadian. I love SGA as much as anyone. Oh, Canada. You got room in your basement or something, Trav, if people need to come live there? Taking in refugees? Yeah, Houston defense really good. OKC defense really good. Again, both teams pretty good offensively as well. But it's just a grindy game as far as like searching for upside. I think everybody comes in around who they are. But searching for ceiling in that one is difficult. Continuing on, though. Getting to some Clay. 19% on FanDuel is essentially level with the field. He is technically a little bit above our value score for 56. Small forward and shooting guard eligible. Reasonable amount of usage. The shots are always going to be there for Clay. The minutes are up a little bit with the shorthanded team. I've got him at 29. That could be slightly aggressive. He went 28 and change in his last one. Averaged 27 for the season. We've seen him crack 30. So I think it's okay. You could knock a minute and a point and change off of him, though. 5,500 on DraftKings. You're just going to get there a little bit. 5.4 value score. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. 15% level with the field. I do think there's some give and take there, though. You can move these shares back and forth with one another. You can work $5,600 Scoot and Shaden Sharp into that mix. There is a range there. Brandon Podziemski is in that same bucket. These $5,000 and $6,000 guys today on DraftKings that we got all in the mid-teens. You can shuffle those around a little bit. So if you want to come off of Clay and look at $6,200 Shaden Sharp with his 0.94, $5,600 Scoot with his 1.0 per minute, with similar minutes projections, higher minutes projections. It's reasonable pivots, reasonable just shuffle back and forth. In one lineup, any one of those guys, they're all essentially the same. When you see a big block of the same projected guys all coming up like this, you can kind of be guided by, all right, we're below the field on those guys and we're with the field on that one, so maybe he's slightly the better play. But there's a lot of same right there. And with Podziemski. We are light on Podziemski compared to the field, though. 6%, those Dubs were getting more ownership earlier in the day. Are we just way down? Let's see where their public ownership is. 456. I haven't mentioned hitting the like button yet. I haven't mentioned clicking the subscribe on YouTube. I haven't mentioned checking out rotoscouts.com. All your NBA, NHL, and coming very soon, MLB needs. Season-long MLB will be on the site in the next 24 hours. I've made lots of promises about that. The recap is taking forever. It's nearly done. I did put time in it over the weekend like I was threatening to. My thinking is the 2 big draft weekends are this coming weekend and the following weekend. And then there will be some drafts that take place after those Tokyo games. So I've kind of been targeting that. But I'm going to try my damnedest to get everything wrapped up overnight tonight as far as what I want to start with and have that up for tomorrow morning. It might be a little into tomorrow morning. Maybe it's 10, 12, somewhere around there. But it'll land on the site tomorrow. and we'll be all over the DFS stuff. Can't wait to start. Anybody who out there who's interested, we're going to open up a Yahoo League for a season-long league in the Roto Scouts Discord. I almost said the Awesemo Discord. In the Roto Scouts Discord, I'll run a little 10, 12 team league, whatever we get. We've got a few people who already expressed interest, but if you're interested, just let me know. Will be a little bit of a pay league. We're going to do it through Yahoo's tools. But 25, 50, something like that. We'll see what everybody wants to do, but we will have a league up. Anyway, check out our guys over at acemind.io too for your sim needs. Promo code RotoScouts, all in caps, 20% off your first month. The Dubs are still getting ownership. Podziemski most of all. Where are they on minutes on him? Just FanDuel, right? All right. The ownership, so again, this 6% is very light. That's one of our bigger undercuts to the field with Brandon Podziemski here. It looks closer to the field at 12% on DraftKings. This is closing in on like a fifth of the field. But it's not because anything is different. It's not one of those cases where they're radically different. I actually have him at the same minutes. They have him 3/4 of a point higher than I do. For whatever reason, a different opinion on what his rate will look like here. But that's negligible. I do think you could take a little bit more. A good player with a reasonable expectation of minutes in a good spot going up against a terrible team. Multi-guard eligible on both sites. Not unfairly priced for his mid 9.9s. So if you wanted to take that to 10, 12%, still undercut the field. Take this up to 15, 18 maybe even, still undercut the field. He's closing in just under 30% projected ownership on DraftKings in what this ran against. I do not vouch for that ownership, though. I've seen too much. Yeah, so DraftKings, we're right by the field. There's not really room to take him up on DraftKings. There's a lot of room to take him up on FanDuel. Which is funky because, again, 469, and if I gave him the 487, this is essentially where they have him projected. It's just weird. I don't really see that as that strong of a play. He's fine. But I don't really know why he's as popular as he is. Am I missing something on Podziemski? Anybody really excited about that spot? Thanks, Trev. Travis says it always got room. Love it. What Hawks grade out the best, asks Millie. So we went through a couple of them up at the top of the board there, lines 9 and 10, or the third and fourth lines on your visible board there. And then Karis LeVert a few spots further down. But Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Karis LeVert all look very good. Essentially everybody is going to look good. Okongwu is one of the top overall plays on the entire slate. And then the Memphis side of that one also looks good. Doug, do I have any cheap power forwards on FanDuel other than Mr. Najee Marshall? Let's pull the forwards back on. We can bounce around a little bit. There's a 502. We got a little time. All right. Cheap power. How cheap are we considering cheap? Like, is 7,000 for Okongwu cheap? Because he's got power forward eligibility, which is noteworthy on FanDuel. Center only on DraftKings doesn't really matter because you've got the util spot to work with. 6,100 on DK is a 6.26 value score. We're getting him 56% of the time and above the field, 58% of the time and significantly above the field at a 5.6 value score on FanDuel with that power forward eligibility. That's next to a 71% share of Joe Val at the center spot. So most of those Okongwu shares are going through power forward. I'm guessing you're looking for somebody cheaper, though. Yeah, 48 or below makes a lot of sense. Let's see. What about a $4,700 Zachary Risachet? Just shy. Oh, no, over the value mark on FanDuel. I've got him at 28 minutes. He played 31.8, nearly 32 minutes in their last game. He put up a total clunker in that game, 18.8 fantasy points. But coming out of that ridiculous Atlanta-Memphis game environment with upside, that answers another reasonable value guy from the Hawks. And 4,700 at either forward spot kind of works. We got him 33% of the time, slightly above the field or somewhat above the field. That's on FanDuel. On DraftKings, level with the field at 20%. 559, we're just slightly above the value score. He's a better value at 47 the way he's playing out on FanDuel than he is at 45 on DraftKings. So I think that works. You did say specifically power forward, right? Yeah. It's not a lot. Taking a slight detour here through Doug's question because it got interesting as I started looking at this board. These are all your power forward eligible players on FanDuel. And in that price range, you have Risachet at 47. All these guys, 51 obviously for Najee, he's getting into a ton. But all these guys in the 7s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, all the way down till you get to Isaiah Stewart at 4,000 with power forward eligibility, only at a 20-minute projection, way shy of the mark. It is like Risachet and only Risachet in that range. That's kind of a wild result. That makes a ton of sense as to why we're getting so much of them there. Like even Filipowski's at 54 now. He would be reasonable in that conversation at a cheaper price, but he's not really that cheap. 55 on DraftKings. We also didn't really get him over there. Yabu at 55. I do have 31 minutes on $4,900 Jabari Smith, but that doesn't do anything for him. He's just not very good for DFS. 0.76, 15% usage guy. Meh. And going up against OKC. A lot of meh there. Pretty sure I've got him either at his 0.76, 0.75, or even further below for that one. Again, everybody taking a little haircut there. And then, there's nothing. There's nothing in that range. That's a great question, Doug. I think this is your answer. If you're looking to get away from that. If you just need one of them, I do think it's Najee. But it's also probably closer than the public seems to think it is. So Risachet, interesting pivot. Does need those extra few minutes and obviously needs to not do that. But for the season, 0.84 FanDuel per minute, nearly 20% usage. Not bad. Let's clean up the bottom of the guards board. Oh, wait. I can't sort a subset of DraftKings eligible shooting guards out of the FanDuel power forwards. I don't think. Not many of them, anyway. So again, we've got this big blob of double digits but below 20% types. The best player in that group is Cade, followed by probably Tyrese Maxey. But this is a reasonable, again, just group of guys that you can move back and forth. I think it is somewhat reasonable to undercut the Podziemski shares given how much he's owned on FanDuel. I could take a little bit more than that, but still be well light of the field, especially with all these other guys in the similar price range, similar projections to work with. I'll just go in different directions. On DraftKings, I think this is perfectly reasonable. You're right around the field there, despite what it shows. It seems like it changed. It's fields in the mid-teens there. But I don't see that as a killer spot. Maxey going up against Portland, he's not unfairly priced at 97 on FanDuel for his 116 per minute, 9,000 on DraftKings for 118 per minute, but he is just getting exceeded at the position by a lot of other, $8,300 for 132 for Ja, as we were just talking about before. Just better. It's a better buy. We're not getting more Ja for whatever reason on DraftKings. It's noteworthy. Well, I guess that is actually a 5.11 versus a 4.96. So, Maxey, a similar buy. But we're getting mix and match shares. I would prefer Ja there for the cheaper price and the better game environment. Quentin Grimes coming off of a 62.7 point fantasy game the other day. 36 and change minutes. I had him highly projected in that one and not nearly enough. He was a beast in that game. Same 32 minutes coming back today. He's at a 4.44 value. We did not get a single share of him on FanDuel. 6.67 value on DraftKings. 6.67 exposure, on DraftKings. Below the field for 5,800. Shooting guard only. A little bit cheaper on DraftKings, but really right now, no reason to go there. If you get no George, you get no Kelly Oubre. That's going to change that situation. Kelly Oubre a few spots further down. We got him 14% of the time on FanDuel, 4% of the time on DraftKings. He's been coming up a little bit lately, just tons of minutes there, a little bit of ability. He's playing at 0.85, 0.84 this season. He's okay when the price is right or when the situation is right. If everybody's just in, outside of obviously Embiid, just going to be an is spot for Oubre. So I'm content being in the mid-teens below the field on FanDuel, being in the low single digits, and not really caring about Kelly Oubre on DraftKings. Santos is going to come down to those minutes, Doug. I think I had him a little bit lower than where I saw him and where the site that the ownership comes from had him. I have him for 17. On a day, if you're just like seeking out that value, then sure, maybe. The minutes are just the last 5, 17, 7, 19, 20, and 13. I got him at 17. If you get the 20 out of him at that price, he's got the ability to get there for you, though. Could pick up a few minutes in that type of situation. Kenneth Woodhouse asks, does Alec Burks get a boost in your opinion with Mitchell's midday downgrade, or would you just leave him alone? Right now, just leaving him alone. I will only specifically change things for the Heat right now, as mentioned before, if we get actual news or based on like actual starting lineups. And even then, I really want to make it a day where it's just super, super clear that the only reliable plays on the Heat, or even remotely reliable plays, are Bam and Hero. Even like Devian Mitchell, if he plays. For one, he's priced at 4,600. He's right there, 4,600 on both sites. He's okay. He's playable, especially going up against a terrible Washington team. But in the grand scheme of this entire slate, he's also highly, highly skippable. And that's in a 35-minute projection. There is some fragility there. Especially if he's, sick? If he doesn't go and we end up with Burks starting, then yeah, it's going to swing in that direction. But I'm not going to go out of my way to make those plays look good before I at least think that they're going to be. Because there's so much downside to them with the shaky minutes, the DNPs, the wild swings in how much these guys play. I think we just want to kind of not avoid it. Like, I don't want to say don't play anybody from that, because guys will emerge. It's just a matter of you could get something entirely different from me, Osimo, RG, and whoever else, all for the same game in the same situation in that one. And whoever happens to be right is going to look good, and everybody else is going to be wrong. Where most games, you're going to find most of the sites are going to be within a minute or two on a guy, a minor amount of fantasy points per minute on a guy, and there's going to be a lot of commonality, and that's what leads to the slate being so sharp and the public being on top of everything and getting to the ownership they should. But that Miami one, anytime you see things that could be wildly different from site to site as you go around looking at different numbers and everything, that Miami team is going to be one of them. That creates fragility. It does create opportunity, but it also creates a massive amount of downside. You're trying to run real fast across the tiger trap before the palm fronds fall out and you drop down onto the spikes and get impaled to death. That's what I think of Miami today. Malik Monk, Anthony Simons, a lot of mix and match guys right there. They're in that same category. Anybody from that mid fives through like 8K range, a lot of swappability with those guys. Definitely some upside for minutes for Simons. He was one of the better options from the Portland side of that game. Played nearly 42 in their most recent game. Just put up 30 fantasy points, though. The production can come and go a little bit. 1.03 overall, 1.06 on DraftKings. Good, not great option. Good, not great player. Oh, sorry. 0.92, 0.98, even worse. The 1.03, 1.06 with Malik Monk on the line above him. The take is essentially the same for both guys. Malik Monk, a little bit higher priced on both sides, though. Kelly Oubre out. There you go. That'll give you a little nudge on some Quentin Grimes. That'll give you a nudge on, what's his face, Justin Edwards. Let's... Yeah, so Oubre coming out. I expect Edwards probably will pick up 10-ish of those minutes, maybe 11, maybe 12. I might just hand one to Grimes just to get 1 minute off the board. Where Grimes will benefit will be from rate and opportunity. And then pick your poison, like Lonnie, Ricky Council, to just hand out whatever 4 or 5 minutes we have left. You'll probably see these guys at 10, 12 instead of 8. But Edwards should benefit there. He's 41 on FanDuel. He's only 38 on DraftKings. Just a .68 guy across sites in his limited opportunities. 24 minutes a night in 27 games. Played 15 and change the other day. Put up a 5.2. So there's downside there for sure. But that'll definitely benefit him a little bit. So more value that we didn't necessarily need coming out of Philly now. Keep an eye on Paul George too. Doug, I had that yesterday. As long as if you go to, not like where it's just the one tournament listed and you can hit the button to, one entry. The screen, if you're on the app anyway, where you see like all your lineups listed and you have to go to the bottom and hit add entry and like yes in that one. As long as they're the correct numbers listed on that screen, you should be good. The one that fell behind for me yesterday was the one where it's just the one tournament with the green button where you can click join. The other thing you could do, obviously you can shoot a note to support, but God knows if they get back to you in time. If you jump to the website, the number on the website usually should be accurate. Or they just might be melting down. It is FanDuel. Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, different caliber of player, but Max Christie. All coming up in the single digits on DraftKings. Below the field on everybody. Obviously, if you're getting more Steph, if you're getting more Kyrie, there's nothing really wrong with either of those guys. In fact, Steph, I could argue some upside for going up against Charlotte. Just a 32-minute projection. We know that they can pull those minutes a little bit. But when Steph gets his time, and especially lately, he's been on fire. 54.5 points in 36.5 minutes the other day. 125, 133 for the season. Still Steph Curry in there and going up against a very bad team. So he could bend the slate a little bit at not crazy public ownership. So building a little position on Steph is an interesting idea, but it's going to be difficult to get up and over the field. I think if anything, you're building back to the field. Kyrie on FanDuel, we did get 23% level with the field. He's 95 on the FanDuel slate, point guard only, same price, same eligibility on DraftKings. Just looking a little bit better in the shuffle on the FanDuel slate. And then really mix and match parts. Timmy Hardaway, I would gladly sacrifice this for essentially anyone else on the slate. He's like my least favorite player when it comes to DFS. Continues to be a good spot. Will benefit from the missing Tobias, but a 0.59 per minute guy this season, 0.62 on DraftKings. He's so skippable. Dinwiddie mix and match on both sides. No real outliers. A couple onesie-twosie shares of Jalen Wells, Lou Dort, Keontae George, Damani Kamara, Koulibaly. Nothing significant. Nobody over 5% FanDuel. And everybody in the 1, if that, range on DraftKings. Let's get some forwards and centers. Taking our sweet time on this one. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe if you get a chance. The site is rotoscouts.com. forgot to mention before, but everything at rotoscouts.com, the NBA, the NHL, MLB coming soon. Access to everything under $1 a day. Gets you everything. Not per sport, no surprises, no, it was that price this week, but this next week it's going to be 3 times that much. Nope. Under $1 a day for all of it, every day, anything that hits the site. Doug thinks Curry's being overlooked a bit. Doug's a sharp guy. I think everybody should pay attention to what he calls out in chat. Typically dropping some pretty good knowledge in there and some pretty good calls. So little reinforcement makes me feel good. Appreciate it, Doug. Yeah, Curry, I definitely think there's upside there. The one concern I would have would be just, not necessarily blowout, but just we don't necessarily need Steph to play 36 to beat Charlotte most nights. So I think that could get away from us a little bit, but does look good. And that's where you get the, if we knew he was going to go out and play 36 minutes, the public would be all over it. So that's where you get the advantage from. Terrence Mann or Highsmith? Here's Highsmith. 6%, 8%. No faith in anything from the Heat. There's Mann. 1%, 1%. Not much better. I would just take Mann for the game environment. Even though he came up less, I think I would just take him for the game environment and just a little bit more like stability. I do think Highsmith is one of the more likely guys to play upper 20s into the 30s minutes. He averages 24 for the season. I've got him at 28. He played 37 in their last game, but he put up a 9.9 FanDuel score. I didn't think that was necessarily possible. Like saying, both sketchy, but I have a strong feeling 1 to 2 of these 4K guys are taking down the slate. Yeah, look, if you can get into that range and succeed, that's going to put you potentially in a different category from a lot of other people, because it's just going to give you more purchasing power at other spots that, assuming those also succeed, you're going to level up. It's just drilling those plays. There's a reason these guys look so low owned and so today. 0.67 per minute out of Highsmith, even if you get the minutes. That's why I just don't like it, or I just don't like him. You get a little bit more per minute out of Terrence Mann, but not really. It's at 0.73 on 13% usage. He's just going to get a little elevation out of that game. Between the two, in 2 fewer minutes, I do have Mann in the raw sense projected about a point higher. But yeah, it's not a bad thought, because that is the nature of this slate today, is that you're going to want to dabble with some of those guys. But I mean, if you're having that conversation, then you do kind of need to throw Tim Hardaway into it too. 4,000 small forward eligibility, not far off the projection. Also very low owned, very bad, but significantly better last year. 0.81 exceeds both Highsmith and Terrence Mann, technically. That's last year's number. This year's number, he's fallen off dramatically. But today's situation's a little bit different, and they're playing Utah. I've got him at 28 minutes. There could be a couple extra there. So while I don't like Timmy, and I was just moments ago saying I hate him and I wouldn't play him, I think he's at least in that conversation if you're having that conversation. Doug says, I'm trying to pair my best to pair Cade, Young, Joval, Thompson, and Beasley. So I'm getting to Burks, Mann, Highsmith, and Hardaway. Yeesh. I don't think it's incorrect to think through it that way. And yeah, if you can find your path to success and nail those two value guys, that's going to be a strong option. So I don't disagree with you. I just am in the good luck finding it department. It's very anti-sim. It's very anti-optimizer the way this slate's playing out. You can see that just looking down the price column. It gets real interesting around those guys. And one of them probably will succeed. There's enough upside for those 3 players that one of those 3 guys probably will succeed and probably will make a difference. Speaking of Joe Val, 71% on FanDuel, gently above the field. 79% on DraftKings, pretty aggressively above the field. 6.67 value score. Again, no sub bonus. No reason in the world he shouldn't play upper 20s minutes. 1.30 per minute on FanDuel, 1.31 per minute on DraftKings. The thing about Joval is when he plays, he is a productive fantasy player. You can see it right here. Last time out, nearly 30 minutes, 53.3 FanDuel points. That is right on par for expectation. 5,700, he's rock solid on FanDuel. 5,400 on DraftKings, totally works, even if he plays fewer minutes. Let's say we get him for 25. I think it still works just fine. He would be mid-4s. Right, we'd be talking about essentially like 4 points off of that if we're taking 3 minutes away. Let's call it 31.5. Still way above our value threshold. Obviously not the crazy good play that he looks like right now, but even if he plays 3 fewer minutes, we're still okay. I think you just go there. Najee, another guy, not totally comfortable, but the minutes are very secure right now. I've got him at 31. We're very secure in the 30 range. Maybe it's aggressive giving him the additional one. You can take that away and it'll still look great. 80% way above the field on FanDuel, 6.42 value, 6.07 value, 74% and way above the field on DraftKings. He's one of the most popular plays of the day on both sites, deservedly so. I do think you could pare it down a little bit, but I think being above the field on it, at least how things look right now, looks pretty good. Okongwu, coming out of that Memphis game, monster on FanDuel. Given that power forward eligibility, the fact that you can play him alongside Joval on the FanDuel slate, looking absolutely tremendous. 1.14 per minute on FanDuel this season. 30 minutes, absolute smash spot. In 34.5 minutes in their last game, he put up a 41.6, and we're playing this game at, I don't remember the exact total that game was at, but let's say it was in the mid-220s. We're playing this game like 20 points higher than that one overall. We're playing two of the fastest paced teams in the league. Kongwu looks fantastic. 6.26 on DraftKings for a value score. Center only. 6,100 with the Utah spot. Doesn't matter. Pair him with Joval. Looks great. 56%. Gently above the field, but above the field. Beasley we've addressed quite a bit, but going to shoot the lights out potentially from 3. You're going to want it if he does. 41% on FanDuel, 48% on DraftKings. Just looking like a very good piece from the mid-range. 52, 5,000. Not bad for the 0.9s that he's putting up. I assume since he didn't get mentioned when we got the Oubre out that Paul George is going tonight. He'll also look a little bit better with no Oubre there. We'll give him a little bit of a tickle as far as the rate goes. But 7,800, I don't know that we necessarily, explode through the ceiling and suddenly get him above the field in like the 30s. I think we probably see him 18 to 20% still and below the field on FanDuel. On DraftKings for 75 at both forward spots, it's a different story. 5.30, short of the value mark, but still 35% and level with the field originally. And if we shore him up a little bit, with the projection, probably goes up a little. So maybe 40-ish%, but probably still level with the field. Might even be a case where the field goes this way and we come down a little bit just given those numbers. So there's definitely some play back and forth with Paul George, even if he goes up slightly. Like if his points only go up a tiny, tiny bit and his ownership goes up by 8 points, 5 points even, it might not be a strong grab more spot. Azar Thompson, we talked about already, but 5,300 looks tremendous. 5.56 value score on DraftKings, 28% exposed, 21% on FanDuel for the 6,400. Significantly higher price, but we're still getting there. 114 per minute for the season. Plenty of opportunity for him. Great matchup going up against Utah. Everything is said about Beasley applies. Everything is said about Timmy Hardaway applies outside of the fact that Timmy Hardaway is terrible and Azar Thompson is not. So definitely like him better than his teammates here. 21% and above the field looks pretty good, even though we're short of that value mark. Bam, we've addressed a number of times. Him and Tyler Hero are the only heat I really want to dabble with today. Karis LeVert, we've talked about. Triple J, looking fine. 20% on DraftKings, 22% on FanDuel. Coming out of the Memphis side of that game, I would take more if I can get there. Probably just getting boxed out of shares by better values, better opportunities. But a significant play in the most significant spot of the day. No reason not to take a little bit more. 1.33 per minute on DraftKings for 8,000 power forward and center eligible. You get him at power forward on FanDuel as well for 88. Price is a little bit more uncomfortable on FanDuel, but we're still hovering just below the value threshold and a little bit further offset from it on DraftKings despite getting similar exposure. Reece Shea, as mentioned, looking like a value spot on FanDuel. As long as he gets into the upper 20s for minutes in a killer game environment, yeah, 47 just works price-wise. Justin Champagnie, I guess, is worth mentioning in that small forward conversation there too, Doug. 4,300. We only got him 6% of the time. That's level with the field. On DraftKings, he does look better at 3,600. He's power forward on DraftKings with 5.6 value score. So that's more a play over there than it is. I wouldn't actually throw him into the mix now that I'm talking it through on the FanDuel slate. He's only sorted here because of this, and we are below the field on DraftKings. Just this price makes things work kind of a play. Not a real killer, but also not completely terrible. When you get to a guy that's priced in the threes, but he still puts up 0.9 something, it's a lot better looking than the 0.59s, the 0.70s, the 0.67 types. So there's a little meat on the bone for Champagnie on the DraftKings slate. I really don't love throwing players at that Miami team. Bad as they are themselves and with the unpredictability and everything, they also have just a negative impact on their opponents a lot. Zach LaVine benefits a little bit in terms of rate and expectations with no Sabonis. 7,700, not a bad price to find LaVine. 19%, we are below the field, but I definitely want to have some LaVine. I think around 1 and 5 is perfectly fine though. 1.06 per minute for the season. 1.12 on DraftKings. We had him 14% of the time on DK. If you're looking to level him off with the field at 7,800 on DraftKings, I don't think that's completely crazy, just given the slightly better per minute marks. You probably only need to go to the 20% range. You get him 1 and 5 on DK also and be level with the field. I think that's okay. You're also okay here, but I think he's a reasonable option given the price and everything to take a couple more shares of. Keyshawn George, mix and match, single digits, 8%, 10% exposed on DraftKings, 5,200 on DK works a little bit better, but he loses the multi-position over there. Power forward only, 5.01, we're looking for 5.5, 4.76, we're looking for 5. Short of the mark, but reasonable enough. But again, it's just Washington. I don't love throwing guys against Miami here. Chris Middleton, for 5,900 for his 1.07, 1.1 and change that he can get to. Not a bad price, but the minutes are really weak. 25 is where I've got him today. He's playing 23, 24 a night. He did put up 34 points in 24 minutes the other day. If you get that kind of a game for that price, you're not smashing the slate, but it's a functional guy in a lineup. That is a score that will definitely play in a winning lineup. Won't be the reason that you got there, but is definitely not something you would have to overcome. The question is, does he have ceiling beyond that? And I really think the answer to that is no. So you're dealing with a guy who maxes out at, he was all right. He didn't break my lineup and has a lot of downside for worse than that. So I don't love going to Middleton. I think it makes sense having him right around 5-8%. And that's even with the benefit of no Jordan Poole for Washington today. Everybody is getting a little bit of an uptick, and it's still not great. That game environment sucks. Mo Moody, mix and match piece across sites, perfectly fine, not special. Draymond, perfectly fine, not special. Typical Draymond spot. 6,600 power forward center eligible, 4.75 value on FanDuel. 11-12% seems fine to me. I think I do want to be below the field. But again, everything Golden State does have an opportunity to end up pretty good, just given the matchup against Charlotte. It's just the minutes with that team also can get spread out. They can get a little fragile. Kirk can play that deep rotation. And Draymond only averages in the 28 to 30 range. So getting a game like this where he plays 36, he only put up 31.6 FanDuel points in that game. But these games are few and far between. And I don't think they need to run Draymond into the ground to beat this Charlotte team. Highsmith, we've talked about. Kelly Oubre off the board. DeRozan, another guy, everybody, it's weird. Everybody with Sacramento, basically the take every day is until one of these guys who plays 30 plus minutes is out, everything's going to look the same. We took one of those guys out, the most significant one, and they still kind of come up the same. 22%, perfectly fine. 7,600 at both forward spots. It's DeMar DeRozan. He is going to play around a point per minute. 7,400 small forward, only a little bit less valuable, even though he's at a lower price on DK. We did undercut the field more significantly on DK because, again, 22% in our pocket on FanDuel, just 4% on DraftKings. If you want a little bit more, take a little bit more. He's perfectly fine. It's slightly better than it is who he is spot just because of the absence of Sabonis. But they still have just a group of really solid NBA players who are just going to share the rock. So I don't love it. Max Christie, 4% across sites, under the field on both. Hardaway we've addressed. Santi Aldama, questionable still, right? Yeah, Santi's questionable. So is Ja. Obviously, those are monumental impacts, and it will create tons and tons of value if one or both of those guys don't play for Memphis. So keep an eye on that. They'll go rocketing through the roof, the Pippins of the world and so on, if we get no job, most specifically. But Santi right now in 28 minutes on FanDuel, power forward and center with basically all those shares going through power forward, I'm sure. Above the value threshold at 5.06. He's played this season at 1.12. On DraftKings, 1.14, but we get him at 6,400 below the field, 2.67%. Not much exposure, way off our value threshold. So different play site to site. Like him a little bit as long as he's out there. Again, anything coming out of that Memphis side or the Atlanta side, I'm going to like at least a little as long as there's realistic production in minutes. And Santi definitely gives you that. Jalen Duren, not really coming up on FanDuel. He's 8,100 over there. He's only 6,900 on DraftKings. Looks like he's getting a little bit of public ownership. We only got him 2%. I can easily see a path to success for Jalen Duren here, especially if you get him above the 30-minute mark. That's typically when he's exploding. I've only got him at 27 today. He only averages about 26, but you can see it right here. 55 and change FanDuel points in 30-plus minutes in their last game. With so many of the bigs out or ailing for Utah, there could be a very easy path to success there. This guy right here that's going to try everything he can do to stop him, though. 10.67. We got more Walker Kessler on the FanDuel slate because he's a tremendous player there. 1.18 per minute. 7,200 dramatically offset price-wise from his opponent. So we got a little bit of the Kessler side on the FanDuel slate at basically the same price, 6,800, the same production overall, 2% on DraftKings. Different player across sites, Walker Kessler. Alex Sarr, onesie-twosie shares across sites. Mix and match shares of all of Jalen Williams, who is spectacular, but mired down in that OKC Houston game. Again, any of the good players in that game, and you guys know who they are, can totally succeed. I do not think it's a day to get bogged down on the mid-board types, though, from that game. Right? It's not a day where I necessarily want much Tari Eason or Dylan Brooks or any of the Cason Wallace types out of OKC. I think Isaiah Joe's out, but wouldn't want him. Lou Dort, those types. I think you just stick kind of to the top end from that game, if you go there at all. Andrew Wiggins, as mentioned, he is the third member of that group of legitimate NBA guys who should play legitimate minutes as long as they're active. For 68 on FanDuel, you could definitely do worse, but you could also do better. It's not like that's got him above our value threshold. He's far off of it for that matter. So if you're getting any of these guys instead, perfectly fine leaving Andrew Wiggins mostly on the table. He's also still questionable. So you've got that. You've just got the downside of everything Heat working against him. He's my least favorite out of those three. He's the least productive at 1.0 per minute, 1.01. But the price is not bad. He's playable. 13% level with the field at both forward spots on FanDuel. Looks worse, small forward only on DraftKings, 2%. He's playable there, but not even as good as he is on FanDuel, and he's not all that good on FanDuel. Terrence Mann was asked and answered earlier. We did get a couple shares. We are below the field. You can reasonably give him another couple of minutes here, I guess. 26 in the last game, put up 22. Played 29 2 games ago. 26, 29, 26 the last three. 14, 22 going back before that. It wouldn't be unreasonable to give Mann another minute or two. So again, I do think that he's at least qualified in that conversation we were having about just very cheap value squares with small forward eligibility on FanDuel. Same story for him on the DraftKings slate. He's actually got that unique point guard small forward eligibility over there. So that just gives him a little bit of appeal. And you can see the 5.0 stands out from the crowd somewhat. Well, some of the guys around him anyway. Not the 5'13" or the 5'19" or the 5'23", but all three of those guys are centers. For guys that share positionality, he's kind of offset at 5.0 from 4.73, 4.76, 4.7s and 4.5s down here until we get to $4,800 Bryce Sensabaugh. At 30 minutes, Sensabaugh for just $4,800, both forward spots. Not really coming up much, but does have a little value score there. We're, again, looking for 5.5, so he's off the mark, but he is offset from a lot of the surrounding guys. So if you're getting out of these shares, you could plunk those 4 shares into Sensabaugh. Same story with $3,400 Isaiah Stewart. No faith in any kind of upside for minutes here, really. I've got him just at his 20-minute average. But for $3,400, you could get there. 5.38 value score is dramatically offset from everybody else in this territory. But again, centers do a little bit better in that category when they get down to this cheap price point. Not looking like a play, but playable. And then there's a handful of good players right here who are not getting really on either side. Şengün, Miles Bridges, Amin Thompson, Mark Williams, Jimmy Butler, Chet Holmgren, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Outside of the last two, Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, any shares of Şengün, Miles Bridges, Amin Thompson, Mark Williams, Jimmy Butler, perfectly fine. We got couple few anyway, of some of those guys on FanDuel. We got literally no shares of any of them on DraftKings. That said, we're just gently undercutting the field at no shares on most of those guys. So it's not like the public is there either. Any one of those guys is a good per minute player. Any one of those guys has a good projection at a not unfair price, but also a just good market value type price. So any given share of any of those guys could be successful, can be in a lineup, no issues with it. Just don't go replacing something really, really good looking with one of these guys, and then not replace like the value guy or not replace like the other high-end upside guy. But as pivots, tournament plays, none of those guys are bad. Holmgren and Hartenstein, just a little bit of fragility in the minutes. They're both excellent producers, but Hartenstein takes a haircut when Holmgren's active. Holmgren's not quite into, the 30-minute range. Is he? Did he? I thought he cracked 30, actually. He also got banged up again and came out of the game the other day. And then missed yesterday. Yeah, he did crack 31. He got to 32. Didn't play the last game. Came out midway through the previous game in 15 minutes. 32 the game before he got hurt. Didn't play the game before that. 28 the game before that. So they were building him up. Then he took a little bump. I don't see really getting 30 out of him. I think 28 is appropriate here, and he really doesn't come up. Filipowski, 28 minutes, not crazy, but we did get him 4% on FanDuel, and he's owned just about that level. At least one to keep an eye on as we get that late news from Utah. If you end up picking up a couple of additional minutes, I don't necessarily know that I'll give it to him because this is about what he's been playing anyway. But there could be a little bit of an increase in opportunity there, just depending on what goes on with Utah. Nobody else really. Mix and match shares on Dylan Brooks, who, again, I don't really need any of those mid-board types. Lou Dort, same thing. Mix and match shares, don't really need any of them. They're okay. They're playable. Caruso, again, any of those guys is playable, but that game just saps a little bit of upside from everybody. And just if you're taking anybody from that one, go to the ceiling players. I think that's most of it up and down. Javier says Houston called 2 G League guys as far as I read. Only guessing, so they're tanking today. Let's see. Oh, yeah, those are the 2 guys I had listed. That's right. McVeigh and Nflay Dante. Nafali, maybe? I have no idea how to say that name. N''Faly? Nafali? Nafali Dante and Jack McVeigh. So, yeah, that's in with Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, Alperen Şengün, and Amin Thompson all being questionable. So, yeah, you could see some value emerge there for the Houston side of that one. Or we're just kind of taking pieces off the game off the board because I don't know how much we're really going to want to go to like the backups for Houston against OKC. Even at price, we've got so much competitive value already. But definitely keep an eye on where the numbers go. That's going to change as we get into it. But if you lose a couple of Houston players, keep an eye on the numbers because you could see some things emerge there. Tough to say, Doug. Doug asks, I'm not getting to Grimes because of my Azar Thompson ownership. Is that a mistake? Given that I haven't reprojected the Grimes spot, I don't want to say that it's a mistake yet because he wasn't looking all that great at 62, at 58 originally. That's at 32 minutes. Like I said, I might toss him one additional minute, give him 33, maybe even 34. He went nearly 37 in their last game, but he was also on fire that game. The issue becomes Azar Thompson's still the significantly better per minute guy. At 114 FanDuel versus Quentin Grimes, 0.88. And that's an improved number for Grimes this year. 0.88 is up from 0.66 last year. Quentin Grimes, not bad. Not a great DFS option. And especially with his price climbing a little bit. I don't know, even with the uptick, that he's going to become super important to the slate. He could go out and succeed. I don't think he's going to do this again, but he could easily go out and succeed. But I don't know that he's going to get projected out to the point where he's bypassing what we're already getting on a very good-looking Azar Thompson play. So probably not. I think you probably are pretty good sticking with the Thompson side of that one, especially if you see Grimes go like this and Thompson go like that in terms of public exposure, because it's not like the public's running away with Thompson already. And if they start taking shares out of him and putting them into him, so much the better. Thanks, Power. That's my cue to end the show. Davian Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Jaime all out. Miami completely broken. Not a real NBA franchise. They're a complete joke right now. Let me go clean that up, reproject the entire thing. Fun. Spring basketball. Oy. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. All right, gang. Let me clean this up. I'll get everything rerun. Update will hit the site in just a little bit. We'll be on top of things all the way through lock and after. So enjoy the slate tonight. It's going to get wild. Good luck out there. Good contest on both sites, by the way. $50K up top, $3.33 entry on FanDuel, and I believe $100K, $5 on DraftKings. Not bad. Catering to the public. Love it. So good luck out there. Let's go take down both sites. Somebody go win something. Show me when you do. Share it. Share those screenshots. I'd love to see them. We'll be back tomorrow for more season-long baseball on the site tomorrow. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Later, guys.